Hey guys, and welcome to a replay that I had saved fire, mwahaha, and you can certainly see why, as we're bringing a fire-themed Dowie build led by Ungrim up against Ramzo Panzer and his Wood Elf forces. Now this has been a grudge match for quite some time, certainly favouring the Dwarvish folk. I think with the latest DLC and patches to Wood Elves, they're definitely in a more, as even as it has been for a long time in this matchup, though I would still say it does favour the Dwarves a little bit, probably about 60-40, maybe even kind of 70-30 even still. But we'll have to see what my opponent does bring to try to trick us into losing the game. Before our forces, we have cheap miners of blasting charges dotted along the front line, mixed in with some Dwarf Warriors as well. Dwarf Warriors, nicely shielded, 85 armor, bronze shield, should be able to absorb a lot of the enemy missile pressure, whereas miners with blasting charges, up against elves in general, who have not that much health and are rather expensive, anything which does cheap burst damage, such as the blasting charges, really can pay some really good dividends for you. So we have those guys guarding the flanks and in the central battle line. We have one, we have two, we have three flame cannons looking to bring the pain to their enemy, and alongside them we have 4 units of the Iron Drakes. These are the basic flamethrower variety in a very wide formation to try to minimise some of the damage we're going to be taking from archer pressure coming in. Just behind us we have basic miners, just 2. We didn't have any money left unfortunately to afford basic units of slayers, but we do have Ungrim Ironfist, the Slayer King himself, coming in very cheap, absolutely naked, just the unbreakability, should be able to deal with enemy cavalry, or at least we do hope so. On the right hand side and the left hand side we have Thanes. They both have the exact same toolkit, coming in with just the Ironbeard's ring, giving that extra weakness to fire damage to enemies within that radius, obviously trying to combine the fire attacks of the Iron Drakes as well as the flame cannons here. For my opponent, he's playing this in a similar way that I play it for the Wood Elves, and that is mass shooting. We have a ton of Glade Guard of Starfire Shafts. Starfire Shafts used to be pretty terrible up against Dwarfs, because they did do magic damage as well as fire damage, but now it's just the fire, which I think is a really good improvement for them. We also have some Hagbane tips mixed in here as well. We have triple Away Watcher, including the Hawkeyes of Drakira, the regiment round over on this flank, as well as a double Great Stag Knights who currently are receiving Loic's Blessing from their Liege Lord, the Spellweaver of Life, make them gain a bit of speed boost, which is very impressive speed on these guys once they get that little boost, but also give them Stalk and Unspottable. As for the Spellweaver of Life herself, riding dirty 2 legs over the one side of the unicorn, an absolute badass. She's kind of Arcane Conduit, Channeling Staff, Regrowth, Shield of Thorns, and Earthblood. So pretty solid, good spells there. And we'll have to wait and see how this does perform. Now, of course, we're not going to win the range game up against the Way Watchers with our Iron Drakes and so forth, but triple Flame Cannon really can bring the pain. These guys are considered a little bit of a meme, a little bit of a joke unit, but if you fire them in mass like this, as the fire arcs across the skies, big fireballs come flaming down, you can see when they connect, my god, do they do some big burst damage. Also that lovely discouraging aura really doesn't fare too well for mid or light tier troops. As you can see, 2 units already breaking it and running for their lives, both units down to below half health. We're going to have to be careful to consistently switch our targets, because this is the problem with the Flame Cannon. Not the best range on it, so the Glade Guard are able to relatively comfortably get into range and start unleashing salvo after salvo into our Flame Cannons. But imagine to force off a lot of their troops quick enough, and Miners of Blast Charge are starting to push forward to drive back the Glade Guard. Unfortunately, 1 unit of Miners has been dealt with, and now the Way Watchers are focusing down one of the other Flame Cannons as the Great Stag Knights try to force their way into the back line. Luckily, we have a load of flamethrowers who are going to be burning and roasting Great Stag tonight. Ungrim salivating at the lips, thinking about the Great Stag he can indeed eat. And the Great Stag Knights, looks like they're going to be receiving a big fat regrowth on them. Not a bad play whatsoever. They still have 21 models and want to be held up as quickly as possible. One Flame Cannon has now been forced off the battlefield, or at least for now, kind of forced away from their artillery crews by the Way Watchers, who are now the focus of attention from all that flame cannon pressure, because in the front line we have annihilated the Glade Guard of Starfire Shafts. A lot of them will come back, but they're running for their lives and we can chase them down with miners and other cheap units, and we still have 2 flame cannons firing quite happily. Iron Drakes continue to try to roast down the Great Stag Knights as miners pit their lives on the line, trying to pin back these mighty beasts, but they simply bound and jump over the miners straight into the Iron Drakes, but it is a trap. You can jump 1 unit of Iron Drakes, I don't care, because I have so many more units of Iron Drakes waiting in the wings to burst you down as you do so, applying that burn effect. You can see the Spellweaver of Life nearly done for. Loic's Blessing has gone down though, increasing the speed of the Great Stag Knights so they can do some more hit and run attacks Earthblood popped on them as well. Continue to try to drive in and take down our Iron Drakes where possible. Miners continue just to pressure the Waywatchers and force them off, force them as well to use ammunition on targets that aren't really going to get them too much value. Dwarf Warriors likewise are forcing back Glade Guard with the help though of some Flame Cannons which are still active. The Iron Drakes continue to burn the Great Stag Knights who are now fleeing for their lives. So you can see the Flame Cannon crew from earlier is now running back to their artillery piece, although some of our Iron Drakes are now a little bit done for and running. The Great Stags fall in droves here, a load of dead stags on the ground as the Iron Drakes do a beautiful bit of crossfire. The Great Stags just about looking to try to force off this Flame Cannon, but no, they're going to rout first. The Thanes are here to support, giving that added weakness to fire, meaning the Flame attacks are going to do even more damage. Despite the fact the Flame throwers are obviously meant to deal with infantry, they still do a decent amount of damage, particularly with that lowering weakness to fire, as we can see on the Great Stag Knights. If I can select them, oh, it's because they've gone out of view now off the Thanes. Ungrim as well is looking relatively healthy in the battle. It's going pretty good for us. Balance power is quite a lot in our favour. However, my opponent's done a really good job of crossfiring. You can see our miners did manage to shatter one unit of Glade Guard of Starfire Shafts, but now it's getting picked apart by the deft accuracy of the Wood Elf Folk. Likewise, same situation is happening with these Dwarf Warriors, but I'm not too fussed by that. If I have to sacrifice these units to absorb enemy firepower, I'm more than willing to allow that to happen, as long as I can keep one or two Flame Cannons shooting, piling the pressure onto these Waywatchers, and hunting down key targets. We are disengaging our cannon crews where possible from the Flame Cannons to try and avoid the missile pressure coming in and save our artillery pieces. Iron Drakes push up once again in a sacrificial sense, looking to roast some Great Stag Knights, but also drag them into the charge so the secondary units can bathe them in holy dwarvish fire. Both the Stag Knight units figured, you know what, I don't really want to be here, and they decide to fall back a little bit with Dwarf Warriors in tow. The Hero Corps is looking really healthy at the moment, coming over to help assist the Iron Drakes, who are now taking pretty big missile pressure from the Hawkeyes of Drakira and those Waywatchers. Poor little Iron Drakes going down, but we have plenty more units left, coming in to burn the enemy once more. Big Fat Earthblood goes down on the Great Stag Knights as they rally to the call once more, but those Flamethrowers now getting into the juicy Glade Guard and Waywatchers. Massive burst damage coming in. You can see that leadership rocketing down in a downward spiral. With another volley or two, these guys probably will be forced off. My opponent not giving up yet, despite balance power being in my favour. He's done beautiful management with his cavalry. They've been roasted a bit here and there, and they've kind of fallen for diving in onto our traps, but at the same time, 60 kills here, 72 on the other unit, and they've been focused down my elite warriors. Really good hit and run play by my opponent so far, but the Glade Guard starting to lose hope. Miners are blasting charges, finishing off this unit in the distance, and Miners now pushing up onto the Waywatchers and other high value targets, and all across the battlefield, Dwarves are chasing and hunting down the Elves, expelling them from their land. Double Fane and Ungrim charging in to help support these Iron Drakes, who are currently point blank shooting the Great Stag Knights in the face. Ungrim running through the fire and the flames to get in here and do some pretty decent cleaving with his mighty axe. Although, as I say, that Great Stag does think he's all that, coming to try and assassinate the Slayer King, but it's going to take more than an oversized pony to deal the killing blow to such a mighty warrior who back swings one Great Stag and forward swings another to their doom. And with that, it looks like the Wood Elf forces basically going to be disintegrating. And some of the last Great Stag Knights have once again hopped onto the Iron Drakes, but the returning retaliation from the beat-up unit from earlier is going to be coming in with that crossfire, helping out where possible, trying to save the Flame Cannon crew, who has actually been shattered here, but we still have one Flame Cannon active, and is arcing big shots over onto the returning Glade Guard every time they come back into the fray. Looks like they may be done here, unfortunately. Those Great Stag Knights finally getting the prize that they've always wanted. And coming in with 60 armor there, relatively flame resistant, I should say, but overall course of the battle, I think they have been neutered rather effectively. Despite the good micro from my opponents, and you can see the poor 4 stags not going to stand a chance at all trying to run and flank once more. They are indeed shattered, and a lot of the Wood Elf forces are starting to shatter now. Great Stags, 8 models left, are going to be meeting the fury of the Double Fane as the Flame Cannon crew try to get back to their artillery pieces, and a few puffs of flame, like mini dragons almost, the Iron Drakes, are going to be spurting up flame onto those Great Stag Knights, driving them further and further away from our glorious Iron Drakes. Iron Drake's now lining up shots into the Spellweaver, trying to shoot her in the rear, and that pony, or the unicorn I should say, is definitely feeling the heat. Trying to run, little unicorn, run. And the leadership is holding firm just about for now. Weight Watchers getting really low on ammunition at this point, and not that many numbers. I don't think they're going to be able to deal the killing blows to these Iron Drakes, and we have even more units starting to pile drive that direction. One thing we really have going for us is, yes, my opponent has a few Weight Watchers and Glade Guard around the battlefield. They're so spread out, and he's having to attack in drips and drabs. It is really allowing my build to slowly grind his down, and keeping our Lord and Double Thane really healthy. Dwarf Warriors have finally managed to drive off these great Stag Knights. They've been a huge thorn in my side all day. Been a big pain. Luckily for us, we have some miners with blasts and charges who can come back, and we're chasing this unit of Glade Guard down. So really, it's just the one unit of Weight Watchers we need to worry about. More flame opening up onto the squishy Hawkeyes of Jakira. Burn, baby, burn. And yeah, minus 44 over leadership, not going too well for them. Minus a blast and charge is now going to start pushing towards the Weight Watchers, and in the distance, Dwarf Warriors hunting down Glade Guard should just about be able to catch them if my opponent's not paying attention, but he's going to decide to kite and fall back where possible. Ammunition, however, is running really low, and even with a unit of Weight Watchers with this much ammo, it's not going to be enough to kill all three characters. But despite this, our army is looking very beat up. Iron Drakes really low HP wise, although decent model count still, so damage output's okay. And a lot of miners are starting to shatter. We basically have our range contingent and our characters left going for us. But my opponent does decide to bow out there. I think it was basically game over. Maybe he could have sniped Ungrim with the Weight Watchers, maybe a Thane or two, but certainly not all three and the remainder of the Iron Drakes. Well played to Ramzo Panzer though. He did have to come up against a pretty unique fire build. So my housemate, some of you may know him because he's in the Total War community as well, called Logic, actually gave me this build to use on ladder. We were kind of challenging each other to use different builds, and hopefully we'll see one on his channel soon as well of the build I've given him. It's pretty ridiculous, but it's pretty good fun as well. The triple flame cannon really knows how to bring the pain on the enemy. Again, well played to my opponent. I think he went about this matchup in one of the relatively competitive ways, trying to mix a little bit together. So you can either go mass range, armor-piercing missiles, of course, always good against Dwarfs, or you go for kind of a great Stag Knight rush, and you can see how problematic they can be, particularly when you haven't brought Slayers and other such units, which we simply couldn't do because we didn't have enough funds to protect the back line with how much damage output we had. But still, good performance by him. I'm interested to see the damage value on all these units, particularly these flame cannons, but we'll get to that in just a second. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a big thumbs up down below, and feel free to comment. What was your favourite unit in the battle? Who was your MVP? What was your favourite moment? Let me know down below. Likewise, you can subscribe to the channel. We're getting very close to the 5,000 subscriber mark, which is a really cool milestone, which I'm very eager to hit. And yeah, every little bit of support really does matter, and I really do appreciate it. Likewise, I appreciate all the comments and stuff, and you guys just turning up kind of every day and watching these glorious videos. Links down below in the description to my Patreon and my Discord. Of course, on Patreon you can support the channel, and on Discord you can submit replays, you can get involved in tournaments and events that I host, as well as chill out with a load of cool guys, practice your Total War Warhammer skills, and build up for the hype of Total War Warhammer 3. Anyway, on to the goodness. Let's see how he performed. Well, Ungrim Iron Fist, 8 kills, 916 damage value, not too shabby considering he was basically full health, and his lack of mobility really did suffer up against this Wood Elf build, but he did help push back those great Stag Knights at pivotal moments, and really gave us a big boon in the balance of power in the late game because he was so healthy. Likewise, the Thanes didn't do too much damage value, this one getting 730, the other one only 141, but they're really here to debuff the enemy with that fire weakness, and again, they were basically ignored by my opponent because he had to focus on other targets, very healthy in the late game. Miners didn't do too much, simply held back the enemy where possible. Likewise, the miners with blasts and charges, not getting much damage value, neither the Dwarf Warriors, but they were the meat that was put in front of my build, so we can roast the enemy from behind. And the 4 Iron Drakes, 887 damage value there, that I've learned to speak again. 1,123 on this unit, 1,443, and then 394. These guys are a little bit slow compared to the other Iron Drakes, but apart from that, across the board, they performed really really well, doing big burst damage to the enemy cavalry. Likewise, the flame cannons performed really admirably. 72 kills, 1,230 damage value. The next one, 1,255, and then 2,736 damage value. Pretty much all the cannons eventually getting wiped out, but 144 kills, 50 kills, 72 kills, helping to clear out a rather small and elite Wood Elf build. Massive damage value across the board, just taking out the Glade Guard for the most part. And if we have a look at them, I'm not expecting their damage value to be much whatsoever. So just under 300 here, 677 not too bad, 116, 91, 420, 320. That is such an abysmal performance by the Glade Guard, and it is simply due to the might of the triple flame cannon. As for the Way Watchers, they equally struggled for the most part. I mean, one unit 323, others faring a bit better, 982, and the Hawkeye's Drakira performing the best as you'd expect, 1,382 damage value, not too shabby there. As for the Great Stag Knights, beautiful micro by my opponent, got them at nearly 2,000 damage value on this unit and 104 kills, 1,316 on the other one. Spellweaver, only 64 damage value, but again, she's here for her buffs, debuffs, all that kind of good stuff, rather than actually getting value on the board. Hope you guys enjoyed this pretty unique build. Until next time, peace, peace. And as always, stay awesome.